A Utah school with unusual ties.
We had to keep polygamy a secret.
And dozens of properties.
You rent from a school?
There are significant red flags.
The laws don't matter if it's God's kingdom on earth.
Fox 13 investigates reading, writing, and real estate. Wednesday at 9.
Hello there, and happy Wednesday. My name is Jeff Tabbs. I work with the digital team at Fox 13, and I'm joined by Adam Herbets, our Fox 13 investigator with the Fox 13 investigative team. And tonight you got a great story about a very mysterious group organization here in Utah that may be breaking the law in some other ways. It involves the Kingston family, Kingston group. And before we get any further, Adam, can you first kind of talk about this family and this group and how they are notorious around these parts?
Yeah, Jeff, whether this group is breaking the law in this case is certainly, remains to be seen. We have a lot of questions. They're certainly facing accusations. Whether there's an actual crime taking place here, it's too early to say. What we can say, though, is that the Kingston group is known for having members that have broken the law in the past. Normal members who have pleaded guilty to crimes like fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. You might remember we have done stories over the years about a company called Washakie Renewable Energy. That's a business run by the Kingston group. This story tonight will focus on a school run by the Kingston group, a 501c3 nonprofit school that has certain tax obligations that they are required to follow. Tonight, our investigation will talk about whether they're actually meeting those obligations and some of the concerns people have.
Now, what makes it interesting is that the school, and the relation to the story is our homes. It's real estate. I mean, the title of the story that we're going with is Reading, Writing, and Real Estate, and that the people in the school own these homes, but we're not really, they're not really saying how they're connected, right?
Yeah, you would expect for a school to own some real estate, right? For example, the building where they actually hold their classes, the schoolhouse. But when we looked up property records, at the very least in Salt Lake County, we found 11 homes that belong to members of the Kingston family, but it's not in their name, it's in the name of the school, Ensign Learning Center. So that was a little bit strange. The question, of course, is whether they're reporting these homes on their taxes. It's a little bit difficult to tell. And we weren't getting a response from the school. So we went to each one of these homes, knocked on the door, and asked, do you know why your house is owned by a school? And nobody was being especially forthright or informative in their answers. So we include that in the story. You'll see my interactions with these tenants, I guess you can call them, living in these homes. But, not a whole lot of answers from them.
Now, why can't they say, well, they're employees of this school, so we're providing them housing. That's part of their employment. Is that something that is legal, or is that also illegal?
It's a little difficult to say. And then again, in a lot of these cases, they did not identify themselves as teachers. I think 1 out of the 11 homes, one woman answered the door and identified herself as a teacher. Most of the others said they had no relationship with Ensign Learning Center whatsoever. Again, you are allowed, maybe in some cases, to have a teacher stay in a home owned by the school. What you're not allowed to have is family members living at a home tax-free. Again, this is a tax-exempt organization. You can't have family members getting any sort of special privileges by living at these homes. And then the question kind of is still out there, well, what if it's both? What if it's a family member and a teacher? We don't know if rent is being paid. We don't know if rent is being paid, what amount of rent is being paid. So this is a story where we have plenty of questions and we're not getting any answers from Ensign Learning Center, potentially because a complaint has been filed with the IRS and there could be an ongoing investigation.
Another kind of a sadder part of this is you have someone who used to be with the group, and she left. She knew something was wrong, or she felt something was wrong, but her mother is still involved. And it appears that she gave up the deed to her home to this group. and now this group claims it as theirs, and this is one of the homes that's kind of involved in this whole mess. It's really more than just, hey, it's a tax thing or whatever. It's a personal family issue too. That's really kind of sad.
Yeah, and when we interviewed her, her name's Amanda. She's a former member of the Kingston group, or as they sometimes call themselves, the Order. She still has she describes it as a weird relationship with her mom. Her mom is still a practicing member of this group. She says her mom partakes in polygamy, which is something the daughter disagrees with. That's why she left the Kingston group. And she described to us a culture in which members of this group are required to hand over some of their assets to the leaders of the group, the leaders, of course, who help run Ensign Learning Center. So there are a lot of prongs to this, a lot of different points on this web that are difficult to navigate. But she has a very personal story, and it's important to know that these are real people in real lives that are being affected. These aren't just numbers on a tax return. And I think you'll definitely get that feeling when you watch the story tonight at 9.
You brought in a couple experts on this story. Obviously we don't want to give anything away, but kind of what was there? If you could give the 20,000 feet overview, what was their thoughts on what was going on?
It's a little difficult to tell because only so much is public record when it comes to a private school. It is a nonprofit, so some of their records are public. But when you're dealing with a private school, they're not required to answer questions from the media. They're not required to hand over any of their spending or other internal documents as a public school would have to. So there's really only so much we can dig into this. The IRS, of course, if they decide to investigate, they have the power of subpoena, right? So they could get access to these documents. What we have to go off of is A, what they tell us, which is not much, and B, what we have in front of us, which are some significant questions and a family that does have a history of not being able to answer those questions in the past.
Okay, Adam, sounds really, really interesting. Again, it's tonight, 9 o'clock on the Fox 13 News at 9. Reading, writing, and real estate. It sounds kind of like just an educational story, but it is not. It has a bunch of layers, like we've talked about, personal, legal, what's illegal. It's really going to be interesting. And then also tonight, we want to also after the piece airs, you will be on Facebook on the Fox 13 Facebook page where you are right now. Everybody's watching right now, and you'll be answering questions about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal, is to have a relationship with our viewers and be able to answer as many questions as possible. So as soon as the story airs, you'll see a full screen graphic that talks about how we're going to be broadcasting soon on Facebook Live. I'll answer as many questions on here until people run out, right? Or at least, the good questions. Even the bad questions we'll answer. Maybe if there's some trolls in the chat, we won't answer those, but we're going to answer as many questions as it takes until people feel like they have a pretty good understanding of this story and what's next. The Kingston family is one that we have investigated in the past. Just last month, we ran a story about a different school, a public school that they run. So I imagine there will be questions about that. There are meetings and ongoing things to look into on that story. So plenty of different paths to go down as we dig further into the Kingston family and some of the questions people have about them.
All right, Adam, we look forward to seeing the story tonight and hearing from you afterwards. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Someone's playing pool in the background. Everyone, take care, and thank you again.
A Utah school with unusual ties
We had to keep polygamy a secret.
and dozens of properties.
You rent from a school?
There are significant red flags.
The laws don't matter if it's God's kingdom on earth.
Fox 13 investigates reading, writing, and real estate. Wednesday at 9.